Good afternoon. It is Friday, February 21st. And we are the House Appropriations Committee. And we have guests from E911 today. And am I remembering you have not been here to present yet for the committee?
Have not.
Okay, so we'll introduce ourselves and then you two can introduce yourselves, if you will. All right, we'll start with you, John.
Good afternoon and welcome. John Kosenska from Burke, and I represent the Essex Caledonia District.
Hi, Mike Nigro. I represent Bennington and Powell.
Tom Stevens from Waterbury, representing the Washington Chittenden District.
Well,
Jim Harrison, Barbara, good to see you.
excellent. Tiff Bloomley from Burlington.
Wayne Rush, I represent Highgate, Franklin, Berkshire, and Richford.
Hi, I'm Mike Marwicki from the Wyndham Ford District, Putney and Dummerston.
Lynn Dickinson, I represent St. Albans Town.
Why don't you introduce yourselves?
Great, thank you
All
very
yours.
much. Thank you. It's nice to meet all of you, at least virtually. I'll be in Montpelier sometime soon, hopefully, and can meet you in person if I haven't already. So I am Barbara Neal, Executive Director of the 911 Board, and joining me is Brenda Barry, our Financial Services Director from Agency of Administration. And we are here today to talk to you about the 911 program itself briefly in an overview, and then, of course, our budget request. So let me share my screen here. I sent over a document other than, there we go, other than the budget book that should be posted now on your website. Let's see if we've got the right one here. All right, are you able to see that screen?
If you make it full screen.
Full screen, and let's go to the slideshow.
Yeah.
There we go. Okay, sorry about that clumsiness. It's always a little difficult to adjust to Zoom after I work on Teams all the time. So my understanding from Representative Harrison is that you would like a brief overview of the 911 board and the work we do, in addition, of course, to the budget discussion. So to that end, a little bit of history. The Enhanced 911 Board was created by the legislature in 1994 as the single governmental agency responsible for statewide 911. And prior to that time, most Vermonters did not have access to any type of 911 service. The intent of the legislation was to create a statewide 911 system that would serve all Vermonters and allow emergency responders to quickly locate callers. So the 911 Board was made responsible for the design, implementation, and operational oversight of the statewide 911 system. And to that end, it created policy, system design, standards, and so forth related to that system, and continues to do so today. And as required by the statute, we do consult with various state agencies, most notably the Department of Public Safety, the Department of Public Service, and the Agency of Digital Services, as well as local community service providers, all to meet the responsibilities with which we've been charged. The 911 Board is an independent board, not attached to any other agency or department in state government. The board itself is made up of 9 members, all appointed by the governor. There's one each representing state, local, and county law enforcement. We have an emergency medical services representative, a fire service representative, a representative of municipalities, and 3 members of the public. The board meets at least quarterly and sometimes more often as the need arises. There are currently 10 board staff members that are responsible for IT management, database administration, training and communications, and our administrative functions, which I see I didn't add to the screen here. The IT management team manages and oversees the system itself and our contracted system provider in digital. The database department develops and maintains multiple databases that are critical to the operation of the 911 system. So these are databases related to how calls route to public safety answering points, the information about the appropriate responders for every location in the state of Vermont, among other databases. There is a training and communications department that's responsible for training and certification of about 100 911 call takers, also responsible for quality control, public education, call taker wellness, and that type of thing. And then we have an administrative and compliance department, which oversees the general operations, business operations of the board office and ensures that our internal policies are operating properly. We are funded through the Vermont Universal Service Fund, which is right now a 2.4% surcharge on retail telecommunications sales in Vermont. That revenue mechanism is changing on July 1st of this year to a per access line fee. So any line that accesses 911 will have a fee attached to it, which will support the Vermont Universal Service Fund. The VUSF supports not just the 911 program, but several other programs ahead of us, actually, in the waterfall of distribution from the VUSF. And beginning in July, there will also be, it will also support after us in the waterfall, the 988 aspects of the 988 program. The 911 board does not have purview over dispatch operations or emergency response agencies. And usually I highlight this item on the screen because it's a common misunderstanding. So we are responsible for the 911 system only. We interact with dispatch operations around the state and certainly with emergency responders, but we don't have purview over them. Here's a listing of the current board members, should you be interested, representing all those entities that I mentioned just a few minutes ago. And here's the org chart for the board as it stands right now. I won't go into the responsibilities of each of these individuals in any detail right now. I covered it generally a moment ago in the general responsibilities of each of those departments, if you will. It's safe to say, though, we are a small and effective team with an individual and organizational commitment to the board's mission and our critical responsibility of providing Vermonters and our visitors with reliable access to emergency services. Now, one thing, let me go back a second. What you don't see on this organization chart, you see training and communications, administration, IT, and database. But what you don't see is who actually answers the 911 calls. And that leads me to the next slide. So, excuse me. The 911 board has partnered with 5 police agencies around the state. So the Department of Public Safety and 3 local police departments and 1 county sheriff's department to provide 911 call taking services to the board as they also provide dispatch services for agencies within their jurisdiction. So the Department of Public Safety operates 2 of our PSAPs, public safety answering points, one in Williston and one in Westminster. If you're looking at the map here, the towns for which those PSAPs answer 911 calls are highlighted in the various colors. So the light blue is all the towns, or calls from all the towns highlighted in light blue are initially directed to Williston. The yellow towns are initially directed to Westminster, and so on. So we also have St. Albans Police Department, Lamoille County Sheriff's Department, Hartford Police Department, and the Shelburne Police Department answering 911 calls for various jurisdictions. So the 911 board itself provides the critical support functions for the 911 function in Vermont. And the PSAPs, personnel in the PSAPs actually answer those 911 calls for us. The board has long supported this geographic diversity of public safety answering points, and also the diversity of agencies providing the service of 911 call taking. It has served us well in times of difficulty with either storms that are hitting a particular geographic area more with more gusto, I guess you could say, that are impacting the call volume significantly. And also in terms of when one agency or another might be having significant staffing problems, the other agencies can pick up or support the 911 call taking function around the state. One important thing to note about Vermont's NG 911 system is if a call is directed to its primary PSAP and no one is available at that PSAP to answer the call, perhaps they're on other 911 calls, perhaps there's some major event going on in their area. For any reason they're not able to answer that call, the call will seamlessly and automatically route to another call taker in one of the other 5 centers. So this allows callers to have their call answered without waiting in a queue at the primary PSAP. So that is certainly
Sorry,
as well. Go ahead.
We have a question here.
Sure.
On your map, I was just curious as to, you've got a couple of disjunct, the 2 dark blue ones, you get a disjunct section there, and then there's one pink one that looks like it's disjunct from the rest of the pink. Could you just
Sure.
tell why?
Yeah. I certainly can. So the pink or lavender color in the middle there is the Lamoille County PSAP. And they answer 911 calls and provide dispatch services for the bulk of the towns in Lamoille County. In addition, they have been, the town of Barry contracted with the Lamoille County Sheriff's Department for their dispatch services some time ago. And when that arrangement came into being, the board decided, or in consultation with all of the entities, decided that it made sense for the 911 calls from Barry Town to also be answered at the Lamoille County PSAP. Before that, they were in that sea of light blue, right? So their calls would have been answered at Williston. But by directing the 911 call to the same entity that dispatches the appropriate responders, you reduce the amount of time it takes to transfer a call to get to the appropriate dispatch. And the same situation is happening over in the dark blue area, which is the Shelburne Police Department, or Shelburne PSAP. So they provide dispatch services and answer 911 calls for all of those towns in dark blue, including the Grand Isle communities that have contracted with them, similar to what Barrytown has done with Lamoille.
I was
Did
just
that answer?
surprised. I was surprised at that because of the state police office in St. Albans. I know they're covering that island district, so I just thought that was interesting.
Right. Yes. Well, it's all based. These decisions about call routing were based on who was providing the dispatch services. So, for those communities.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
You may proceed.
All right. Thank you. A few stats from 2024. We answered 232,000 911 calls in 2024. That's actually down about 8% from the year before. There were about 178,000 wireless 911 calls, which accounted for 77% of our total call volume. This is up from 76% in 2023 and is expected to continue to climb. In some areas around the country, it's over 80% or better of calls received from wireline devices. There were 16,000 abandoned calls in 2024. An abandoned call is an instance where the 911 caller hangs up before the call taker has been able to answer the call. When that happens, that the abandoned call is recorded and displayed on the call taker's screen, and they go through a number of steps to attempt to reach that caller and ensure there was not an emergency or handle whatever emergency does exist on the other end of that line. In 2024, it took about 5 seconds to answer an incoming 911 call. Call taker stayed on the line with the caller for an average of 2 minutes and 17 seconds. And we received just over 1,000 text to 911 calls, which is up about 16% from the previous year. And while the call taker is spending time with the caller in that 2 minutes and 17 seconds, the call taker is determining the nature and location of the event and either contacts or directly dispatches emergency responders for the event, and also provides pre-arrival instructions to the caller with the goal of keeping the situation from getting any worse, hopefully, before responders arrive. So that's the quick overview of what we do. And I'm moving on now to the actual budget request, or at least an introduction of our budget request, unless there's any questions on the overview part now.
I think we're good.
Okay, great. So we did submit our budget request for about approximately $5.3 million. You'll notice right at the first bullet on the right-hand side, that's an increase of about 10.1% from our FY25 budget request. And I will move to this next slide to explain why we have that 10% increase versus the expected 3%. So the bulk of the increase that we're requesting comes from this line item here, that we have asked for a reinstitution of a $300,000 per year capital replacement line item. So these are funds that in the past we have requested and received be transferred from the Vermont Universal Service Fund to the Enhanced 911 Special Fund, and be allowed to carry forward from year to year in the special fund to support system upgrades and or replacements that happen about every 5 years. So allowing these funds to build in the Enhanced 911 Special Fund prevents us or mitigates the impact, I guess I should say, of us coming back to the legislature every 5 years and saying, we need $1 million for a system upgrade. So it's a mechanism we have used to plan for system upgrades and system replacements. Some of you may be aware that over the past several fiscal years, our funding source, the Vermont Universal Service Fund, has had difficulty raising enough revenue, if you will, collecting enough revenue to support all of the programs that it is supposed to support. And in the past, I think it's 3 fiscal years, there has not been enough to fully support the budget request from the 911 board. We removed this $300,000 line item when those revenue problems began to be very clear. It was something of an attempt to live within our means. Now, the Vermont Universal Service Fund has undergone the changes that I mentioned earlier, where the revenue mechanism has changed from the percentage on telecommunications sales to a per line fee. And that change is expected to bring in sufficient revenue to support all of the programs through at least 2029, I believe the report said. So given that change, we decided this is the time to reinstitute or request to have reinstituted that set aside line item. So that's the bulk really of the increase. Of course, there's this salary and the personnel costs increases that you can see listed there. We also have about $71,000 in increased cost for the monthly maintenance for our 911 system provider. Those changes will go into effect, those increased costs will go into effect in October of this year when we extend the contract for another 30 months. And I'll take a breath here and hand it back to the chair.
Oh, the time of this committee.
That's you.
Oh, yes, hello. I'm just not used to being called the chair because I'm just
sorry.
substituting for the chair. No, sorry.
Sorry about that. Didn't mean to add
No.
confusion.
I apologize for that. I think we all needed to laugh just a little bit, and if it's at my expense, that's fine. How, any of you have further questions about this? Well, and who has this budget? Might be Jim?
It's Jim.
Okay,
Representative Harrison, yeah.
yes, okay, great. Well, he will follow up with any questions, as he is wont to do. Thank you very much for coming.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All righty, take care.
And we will come back when we take testimony in about 5 minutes from the Office of Youth